Sweden just handed Ukraine a fighter jet that, in a war, doesn't actually need an airbase to fly from. It takes off from ordinary public roads. It hides in forests between missions. And a handful of barely trained conscripts can refuel it, reload its missiles, and launch it again in under 10 minutes. Next to an F-35, it looks almost unremarkable. Small, single-engine, cheap. But this plane was built, from its very first blueprint, with one enemy in mind above all others. Not a generic foe. One specific country, Russia. For 50 years, Sweden rehearsed a war with that country it never actually had to fight, perfecting this jet for an invasion that never came. Most nations build fighters to win a war. Sweden built one simply to still be flying after the first hour of one. And now, in 2026, the exact war it was designed for has finally arrived, just not on Swedish soil. This is the Saab Gripen. And the reason Ukraine begged for this specific plane over the F-16S it already flies begins with a single paranoid assumption that shaped every bolt of it. Every Air Force on Earth shares one nightmare. The enemy destroys your planes on the ground before they ever take off. Most countries answer it by hardening their air bases. Thicker shelters, better defenses, faster warning. Sweden did something stranger. It simply assumed it would lose. Sitting next to the Soviet Union through the Cold War, neutral and outnumbered, Swedish planners concluded that in any real war, their big fixed air bases would be cratered in the opening hours. So instead of protecting bases that were going to die anyway, they built an entire air force around not needing them. The plan was called Bas 90, a sprawling web of small hidden airstrips and ordinary public highways scattered across the country. Flight lines spread far apart and tucked into the forests. The idea was brutal and simple. You cannot bomb an air force on the ground if you can never find it in the first place. Fighters would scatter into the woods, fly from stretches of road, and vanish again. A moving target the enemy could never pin down. But a doctrine like that only works if the aircraft is built for it. And that single demand, survive when there are no air bases left, shaped the Gripen into something no other Western jet quite is. So how do you keep a fighter flying when your bases are smoking holes? Saab's answer was to make the Gripen almost absurdly easy to operate. It can land on a strip of road barely 600 meters long and only 16 meters wide, about the width of a two-lane highway, with no parachute and no arrestor hook, using its canards and brakes to stop short. Then it taxis under its own power, can even pull a U-turn on the road, and parks among the trees. Then comes the part that made it famous. Refueling the Gripen, reloading its gun, and hanging fresh air-to-air missiles can all be done in under 10 minutes by one trained technician and 5 young conscripts. Everything they need fits in a single small shipping container, hauled in by truck. The instant the job is done, the crew melts back into the forest, and the jet is gone before the enemy even knows where it touched down. The Gripen's deadliest feature isn't a missile. It's that you can hide it in a forest and have it back in the sky before the enemy finds the road it landed on. No other modern fighter was built so completely around the assumption that it would always be running, always hiding, always one step ahead of annihilation. But surviving a war isn't the same as winning one. So Sweden made its little jet fight clever. Here's what confuses people. Park a Gripen next to an American F-35 and it looks like it's losing before the fight even starts. It's smaller, it's not stealthy, it carries less. On a spec sheet, it's outclassed. That was never the point. Sweden was never going to outspend a superpower, so it built the opposite of a superpower's jet. One a small nation could actually afford to fly constantly, in numbers, for decades. By most estimates, the Gripen is the cheapest Western fighter in the sky to operate. costing a fraction of what an F-35 burns every hour. A jet that's grounded for maintenance protects no one. And the Gripen was built to spend its life in the air, not in the shop. But cheap doesn't mean toothless. Its real weapons are invisible. A modern radar, a powerful electronic warfare suite built to blind and confuse enemy sensors, and a data link that lets an entire formation share one picture of the sky. And bolted under its wing is the Meteor, a beyond visual range missile so lethal it can kill an enemy aircraft from a distance most fighters only dream of. Often before that enemy even knows it's being hunted, and every one of those choices was aimed quietly at a single opponent. Most Western fighters are built for a generic enemy, whoever shows up. The Gripen was built for a name. From the radar to the missiles to the road bases, the entire design answers one question. How does a small, outnumbered country survive the Russian Air Force and still bite back? Its electronic warfare was tuned against the radars Russia actually flies. Its Meteor exists to outreach Russian fighters before they can shoot. Its dispersed basing exists to survive exactly the kind of opening missile barrage Russia specializes in. There may be no other Western jet on Earth so precisely sharpened against one specific adversary. For 50 years, Sweden perfected a fighter for a war with Russia. It spent every single day praying it would never have to fight. Generation after generation of Gripens trained for an invasion that, mercifully, never came. The jet was a loaded weapon aimed at a war that stubbornly refused to start. And then, in 2026, that war finally arrived. Only it wasn't Sweden that needed it. In May 2026, Sweden agreed to give Ukraine the one thing the Gripen's design had been waiting half a century for: a real war against Russia. The package is the largest Western fighter deal Ukraine has ever secured. 16 Gripens donated straight from Sweden's own fleet, up to 20 brand new ones on top, and talk of as many as 150 in the years ahead, all carrying the Meteor and other modern missiles. But the number of jets isn't the real story. The fit is. Russia bombs Ukrainian air bases almost daily. The expensive Western jets Ukraine already flies have to be hidden and protected at enormous effort. And here comes a fighter explicitly designed to operate without a safe airbase at all, to fly from highways, hide in the tree line, and turn around in minutes. The jet built to fight Russia from Swedish roads is finally going to fight Russia from Ukrainian ones. The nightmare Sweden spent 50 years preparing for became, almost perfectly, Ukraine's everyday reality. So here's the strange beauty of it. For half a century, the Gripen was a rehearsal with no performance, a weapon perfected for a war it was never fired in. Now it goes to that war over someone else's cities. But let's be honest about the limits. This is no magic bullet. The donated jets don't start arriving until 2027, and the newest ones not for years after. Russia's air defenses are murderously good at killing anything that flies low and predictable, as Ukraine's war has shown again and again. And skeptics rightly note that flying from a road only matters if the fuel, the missiles, and the crews can keep reaching that road. A squadron of Gripens won't, by itself, win the air war. A handful of these jets won't decide the war, but they may be the first Western fighters Russia simply cannot destroy on the ground. Sometimes, the most dangerous weapon isn't the most powerful one. It's the one still flying when the powerful ones are craters. We've torn into the planes built to attack. Next, we're going after a legend built to do the opposite. A secret spy plane that flew untouchable for 70 years and is finally being retired in 2026. You won't want to miss it. Stick around.